I'm Betty Moloznik.
And I'm Joe Moloznik.
The summer of 1954, after Joe graduated from Wharton and before we were married, before he began law school. Joe went to Penn and belonged to a fraternity, but he did not know any neighborhoods beyond the fraternity at 36th and wherever, Locust Walk, I guess. So we went to someone who told us that they had apartments in we wanted to be within walking distance of Penn. And we met a Mrs. Framby's who owned property. She was a lovely woman and she had nothing, but she said, just do not go north of Market. And then we came upon this small apartment on Buckingham Place. And at that time, it was one of the few little streets with still cobblestone. So I fell in love with the street. And there were many homeowners on that street. So we rented an apartment from a little stern woman who we called Malloy. She was Mrs. McGregor. And she said, well, I have an apartment, but I do not want babies in that apartment. And I said, well, we just got married. You know, I'm going to work so my husband can go to law school. Well, 11 months later, I had a baby. And she really meant it. Joe had to find an apartment and move out while I was in the hospital. And she found another apartment on Buckingham Place, just a few doors down on the first floor, which worked out very nicely for us because we were up on the second floor. And then she became our best friend because she felt so guilty that when my son Mark began eating, she came over every morning with a fresh custard for him until he was about a year and a half old, I think.
Nice.
And then she had two older sisters, elderly sisters, both buyers of DeWee's department store, which was in Philadelphia at that time. And they passed away, and they had this house on 4416 Locust. And of course it had, it hadn't been touched in cleaning or decorating for years because they were elderly. They passed away, and there was an attorney who lived across the street from us on Buckingham Place. His name was Mr. Ottinger, and I've always enjoyed him, and we got to know each other. And then he said, Mrs. McGregor wants to sell that apartment quickly, that house quickly. And she only wants $4,600 for it. Well, I got on the phone and Joe was, at that point, maybe starting to do your internship, I'm not sure. He just graduated. We had a $500 bond that we had saved for emergencies. And I got to know the banker at 45th and Walnut. It was First Pennsylvania Company. He managed to get us a mortgage to buy this house. So we did, and it was just, we had wallpaper peeling off the walls, and it just hadn't been touched for years. So we proceeded to clean it up and I did all the wallpapering and painting. And we had expecting our third child then, so we moved before she was born, and we lived there years. We lived there until Spruce Hill became a community. They began the community association. And Joe was, because of this family that we met when we first came into University City, recommended that Joe get onto the board of Spruce Hill, and then he became president of Spruce Hill Community Association. And he was president for a couple of years, I guess, but on the board. And as my one friend said, Betty never came to the meetings, but Joe always volunteered her. I was home with babies. And he volunteered me to run the first fair, Spruce Hill Fair. And we had it at the Divinity School. What was the Divinity School then? The Penn Alexander School is there now. I think we had maybe 2 or 3 fairs there. And then I had a friend who I asked to help me with the fair, and she got the bright idea of using Clark Park. So she went ahead and did all the work with the city to get the license to use Clark Park. So then we had him at Clark Park, and I did it for years. And Joe emceed the fair forever, even after I stopped chairing it. But it was a wonderful community gathering. It really made us feel like we've all created a community in a neighborhood that was just a neighborhood, not a close neighborhood. So then Joe got onto him. He was on that board, and then he should be telling you this.
Keep going.
Keep going. Oh, the next big step was we had someone come over for dinner from St. Mark's Square, and he was an artist. And he said, "Oh, there's a house that just went up for sale, 42nd and Locust. It's just perfect for you." He knew we wanted to move out of the small house, because I was, of course, at that point thinking, oh, I'll move out to the suburbs. I had friends out there, and we walked up to the house, and I was overwhelmed with the size of the house. It had apartments. It had 2 apartments in the back, which were the old servants' quarters, and then 2 in the main house. And we lived there for almost 50 years. But we just restored, took back the apartments, and I had great pleasure restoring the house. And when I first walked in, I didn't think I wanted to live there. It was just overwhelming. And when the mover left us there, the night we moved, he said, "Better you than me. I wouldn't want to live in this haunted house." But I had fun restoring it. Joe was very kind and let me do. He was so busy with his law work that I was busy with the children and restoring the house. And we took back the 2 apartments and incorporated them into the house, which completed the original house. A few years later, after restoration, we had a terrible fire.
Oh.
It started, Joe, we had a place up in the Poconos, and I had the children with me. And Joe stayed home to write. He was writing a brief or something important for work. It was ice cold weather. It was January. He had a fireplace going, and there was a clean-out plate at the bottom, which we never used, but he must have pushed it aside, and the embers got down into the chimney down to the basement, which I'd cracked, and happened to have a bookcase in front of it with books. And just a terrible fire. Everything that I had just restored was just gone.
Oh.
I went straight through the middle of the house. All my beautiful woodwork and paneling. So we couldn't live there. And we had this dear friend, Marianne Krimilovich, who we met the family at our church, and our children have become very good friends. All the boys, she had 3 boys, and our 3 boys. And she had a large house on Baltimore Avenue. She rented to students. She had a rooming house at that time, and she had actually was legitimate for her to have all those students. But anyway, she found space for all of us, and we lived there for 6 months. While the man, we had the most wonderful carpenter, Opti Antonio, and he came back and just redid what he had just done.
Oh.
And it took us 6 months before we got back into the house, and we lost a lot of paneling in the dining room. We didn't. It was so expensive to replace that. We just put a buffet in front of it. Use that wall with a buffet and a mirror. But then we lived happily after that. We loved it. We loved the house. The children loved it. I did not want to move. I loved my holidays there. We always lit up the house with candles. The corner was always, I had a fetish about lights. I just would light up the house at night, because when I was a child I was always turning out lights. And I just would say to everyone, turn on the lights. And so there were lights in windows all the time. But at Christmas time we did the candles. We had like 52 windows. Joe was always very involved with the community, and involved in the biggest accomplishment was the swimming pool. That Jim Cox was the first person who got the idea, and he got 5 other people, and of course Joe they needed a lawyer on the board, so Joe did all the legal work, and they managed to get, I think it was President Harnwell, who ended up helping to finance, having Penn help to finance it. And it was the first integrated pool in the city, and it's still thriving now.
It was the right house for me at the right time, and there's no real reason to try to judge that with the other houses, but it is a highly unusual house. It was then, and it remains now. I don't think that there could have been for us a better house. There were just a lot of rooms, and I don't think we decided to have so many children because we had more rooms, we had more rooms.
We had a couple more children.
Whatever the reason
in
was,
that house.
it turned out that house was and is and remains a major recollection for our living accommodations then. And there were some other things that happened during that time, and I'm not sure whether we get into the swim club now, because Betty had mentioned the swim club to supplement what she said. We went to the University City Swim Club, and that became an ongoing effort by a half dozen people to get a large enough local community to want to participate in it. And we became a university city swim club that was a combination of people from the entire area, and apparently now is reported to be the first integrated swim club in the city of Philadelphia. And I think that probably that made a major impact on the entire community. And we remained members actively for a number of years. The exact number I've forgotten, but the board of directors, on which I was one, would do all of the work necessary to keep the ship afloat, and I handled the legal end of it from the beginning until we moved and became a little bit old people, and we no longer were able to do what we did 10, 20 years before that. I think for the moment I have just renewed our membership, but it's not an active membership, and it is probable that within the next year we will either redonate back to the University City Swim Club our one share.
From Western Pennsylvania, both Joe and I lived in Western Pennsylvania in two communities about 6 miles apart, I guess. And that's where we met, at a church dance. And we dated for many years because he went into the service, and he had gone to Russia and worked with the American Embassy in Russia. And Walter Cronkite's wife taught him how to play bridge, and who else was there? Bedell Smith's wife, I think, taught him how to waltz. So he had this great experience before he came back. And when he came back, the summer of going back he was back at Wharton, but then was recalled during the Korean War, and he went to the Pentagon and was with the Strategic Intelligence Department. Oh, it's a wonderful community, and we always feel like we were pioneers and we helped to make it a wonderful community. I remember going to Sally Johnson, who was one of the presidents of Spruce Hill, and we worked together at the Arts League. And I went up to her after Stanley was the chaplain at Penn, and his memorial service. When I went up to see Sally, she took both of my hands and she said, "Betty, we made University City."
No.
We both worked with the Historical Society. The Arts League was a big thing that we spent a lot of time on. Mm-hmm. The Arts League was a wonderful addition to University City. And I think it's still thriving. No, not as many children as there are now. My son Mark says that there are just children everywhere walking the streets. It's just wonderful to see.
People were,
that was part of what, I think it was Sheldon Hackney when he was president of Penn, and he began to help finance, take back mortgages for faculty and I think all members of the Penn community to encourage them to stay in University City. And that really was the real boost that the University City needed, because then we had younger people moving in. Right next to us was Pro Musica. Dr. McCoubry, who was the head of the art department, moved into the block after we were there. The Wolfgangs,
Martin
Dr.
Wolfgang.
Wolfgang, the criminologist, was our neighbor. Adam Gopnik, that everyone, I think, remembers something about him, lived across the street from us. Mr. Penn and his father, I think, had head of the history department, one of the, I can't remember which one, but anyway, they had this bright little boy, that 4 or 5 children that played with our children. But little Adam came into our house at maybe 5 years old and said to Joe, "I can read Shakespeare." And Joe said, "Oh." So Joe reached up in the bookcase, got a book down on Shakespeare and handed it to him. And indeed he could read it. Those were nice. We had very nice neighbors. I was very proud that Joe was at Penn. Belonged to a fraternity and he was very active in the fraternity and had to work, always work hard to make his own money. He had the GI Bill. He didn't tell you, but he applied to Penn by telegram from Russia because I think it was Bedell Smith who said to him, "What are you going to do after you leave here?" Joe said, "I have no idea." There was a small college near his hometown that he thought he'd probably go to. And he suggested, "I think you should go to Wharton." And he applied by telegram and was admitted. After he had to take a couple of classes that he needed, but I always thought that was a nice story about him. Well, I actually went to Drexel for a while before I started Movable Feast. We had an old inn in the Poconos, and so I took classes at Penn and spent some time at Drexel. I didn't finish we opened the Movable Feast, and I got so involved. We already had an inn in the Poconos, so I couldn't stretch myself much more. So then I devoted my time to a Movable Feast. We had the Acme, and we had the Penn Fruit. Those were the two places. And that was the reason we opened a Movable Feast. Because we were at a party one night, and 4 of us who all liked cooking complained.
Girls.
There was Ruth, Malloy, Adele, Coach Gray, Georgia Parks, and myself, just chatting at a cocktail party. Oh, we have to go to the Reading Terminal to get what we need, market. And Joe happened to have invested with a friend the building on the corner of 45th and Spruce. There was a pharmacy at the time. So it was empty. So it was very easy for us to go into business with Joe owning the property, being very kind about our rent and our deposits. And we literally just, out of spending very little, but a lot of our time, opened the Movable Feast. And we tried to stock our shelves with imported items that now you can get in the supermarket. You couldn't then. You couldn't find Nutella anywhere, or you couldn't. There's all the French foods that we could stock, and we cooked, froze. We cooked a meal and have it hot for the day we made it, but then everything else was frozen in single portions. So, right today that would be a very successful business, I think. But we did a lot of catering for Penn, a lot of trays that we would send to Penn meetings and box lunches. So it was we opened in 1976. The only restaurant we went to when we had small children was Chinatown because it was a fun place to go, and Joe always loved seeing the little grandmas in Chinatown making spring rolls and little children around her. Our children could have anything they wanted because the price was right. Then there was a chuck wagon, I think, on Walnut Street that we went. It's no longer there. Well, it didn't have any, there were no basketball courts. Little Nell was the only thing that was there. It was just a green park. It was a very nice park. It was, the city, I think, cut the grass. They didn't have the paths that we put in. I think we put in a lot of paths. But it was always a nice meeting place for the children to go and play. It was fine. There was I remember there was a flower shop. Alan Klein's wife put in a nice flower shop at the corner of 43rd and Baltimore. And I think the bar that's there now was there then. I don't remember using Baltimore Avenue very often. Spruce Hill, of course, the fairs was a big job every spring. The Arts League, we were involved in the Arts League. Managed to reopen the Arts League and got Penn to convince Penn to take back a mortgage for us, I think. I think we were the ones that had the first house tours. When I ran the house tour that we had, a couple house tours, they were for the Arts League, but then the Historical Society began doing the art, whatever house tours they have. Now I hate it. Last year I think they had a walking tour of University City. And then of course the Historical Society. The Historical Society began when Penn started taking down the old brownstones at 38th. The Locust, there was a beautiful row of houses there. And part of the group that we were all interested in saving, we were upset about losing those houses. That's how the Historical Society really started. And some of the people would go and scavenge those houses when they were being torn down and got bits and pieces of wood. And I ended up with a big mirror that they confiscated. But I had my small children, and I didn't. They would do it on a Saturday. And that was the beginning of the Historical Society. Well, Sylvia, had the most wonderful husband, Barkan, who I loved dearly, and he passed away at a very young age, and I was distressed. I think it was when we opened the swimming pool. But Sylvia was great. She's designed my logo for the movable feast, and she always did my menus for me. And Ruth Malloy would edit the menu. Ruth was wonderful. She was a lovely person. And I have a little wooden house there, a copy of our house. Ruth Malloy walked around my house, and you could walk around my house. That was really a fun thing for the children. They could really run around the whole house. And the walls that we had, they could climb the walls and walk the walls. But Ruth, who was, I don't know how old she was then, late 80s probably, walked around my house, took photographs of it, sent it to someone she knew in England who made replicas of houses. I liked the variety of people that lived in University City. It was just a nice experience to meet all kinds of people. I can remember having a neighbor, and I would love to know where they are. Her name was Johnson, the black couple that lived up from 2 doors up from us on 4416, and she had a little baby, and I was expecting a baby, and we were friends, and I had a bassinet set up for my new baby that was coming, but she was going out, and I was babysitting for her. I said, "Oh, it's perfect, you can just go into the bassinet." And Mark came home and he said, "You've had the baby?" It was so funny, but they were a lovely couple. I'm not sure where they moved. We bought 223. She did some upholstered window seats as a surprise for me, pillows, cushions, but I lost track of them. But I like the diversity. I think that's so great.